We have those things for you. We have skin, and we have things that
Duck
you
heads.
could rotate through. Cuticles.
Oh, my name's Kat. I do healthcare with Tanya. I curate most of the inventory here with Jake, and I really like poodles.
Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm one of the directors of Discover Dogs. I'm passionate and run the healthcare program here, as well as do all the finances and budgeting behind the scenes.
Great. Let's get into some food questions. How often should you rotate proteins, and what type of protein combination is best?
Protein rotation, we generally do like by the box kind of situation. So if your dog is really small, that might have to change. Like if you have like a 5 to 10 pounder, you might want to rotate every couple of days with different sheets. If you have a really picky dog, then you might also want to rotate more often. But as a general rule, like every 1 to 3 weeks, you should be switching up proteins.
I like the whole balance over time kind of idea. It tends to take a little bit of the stress off the client. Most critical things that we see are like symptoms or allergies. They're usually the dog's been on a protein for a really long time. In terms of protein types, we can go into a lot of detail here in terms of meat having characteristics of temperatures that they create in the body. But I would say in general, I love a lot more white meat than red. If you're looking to cool down the body, then we'd recommend looking into traditional Chinese meat temperatures, as meats like duck and rabbit, beef, salmon, pork, those are really cooling, very neutral to cooling temperatures, so those are awesome for bringing down inflammation. But if your dog has no issues, I would just say do it all, and white to red, we kind of look for about a 3-to-1 white to red over time.
How do you know if your dog is allergic to a certain protein other than doing the fur test, which is like a vet administered?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a couple good allergy tests that we like using biofeedback, but I would say I actually think a lot about the needs of the dog first. Like, is this person exercising their dog enough, stimulating their dog, and does their dog chew regularly? Just because we see neurotic tendencies that can present themselves like allergies.
Like itchiness, that like classic like sit on the floor and kick their ear can often be like a stress sign, and people think like, oh, my dog's so itchy, but when we look at all the other parts of their life, it might actually be that your dog's kind of bored.
Yeah.
But I would say, short of doing some sort of allergy testing, your best case scenario would be a true elimination diet, which is very hard to do. That it would be all one protein. We want to keep it as limited as possible. So while some vets and other practitioners maybe like to recommend a kibble that is a single protein, we would recommend getting as fresh and as limited processing as possible. Something like a raw or freeze-dried diet that's just one animal protein, limited veg content, and then all your treats and chews would be the same. You do that for a minimum of 3 weeks, and then slowly introduce one new protein at a time.
Only one. Treats, chews, meat, everything is one protein. It's worth it in the long haul.
Yeah, and then the tough part is picking things up off the ground, or if you have kiddos and they're throwing things on the floor, that skews your results. So it is a very
Blast you Cheerios.
close test.
Yes. And allergies are often misdiagnosed or brought to light when it's actually a yeast issue. So we won't go too far into that, but auburn-colored paws, eyes, discharge from the ears is often yeast is winning in the body, and so we would look at a different strategy to one that we would take with allergies.
Okay, so what are some good food options for chronic pancreatitis?
Some dogs are really like they've had one incident and
Acute.
Yeah, exactly. And that they sort of bounce back really fast with their normal diets, maybe some rehydration to the diet if they're feeding dry. But I would say chronic, you're going in with all the stops. So you're making sure the food is hydrated. The proteins are very low fat. I would even go into, we talked a little bit about meat temperatures. I'd go into some neutral to cooling. Mm-hmm. I love a good filtering organ tonic. So Adored Beast Liver Tonic does kidney, liver, pancreas, Detox Gold, which is Pet Wellbeing herbal supplement. We've really seen the supplements increase how fast things heal. That's why we're pretty passionate about our herbs and homeopathics.
It's like lean meats, as you think you mentioned. You're like rabbits and buffalo and turkey, but watch your turkey. If you're getting like turkey from the grocery store, that can actually be a lot higher fat, even if you're getting lean ground. Just because it's not going to have the bones and organ incorporated, you're getting a higher concentration of muscle meat, which just means more trim and fat, not outer layer of the muscle. Those kind of things. Some home cooking, sometimes folks will home cook.
Gently cooked can ease some of the digestion pressure on the gut. But some
it's a lot
lean
of trial
meats,
and error.
yeah, well, some lean meats are really hot in temperature. So like kangaroo's lean and awesome for allergies, but long term it's going to warm the body up. So straightforward, stick with a 1 to 2 proteins over a couple months and take it easy. And vegetables do actually have reactions or create reactions, so you really want to stick with leafy greens during that and really reduce root vegetables.
And stop a probiotic, weirdly.
No bugs.
No bugs, because the intestines are struggling when you have a pancreatitis flare-up.
Easy question. Is grocery store raw meat good or bad?
I would say grocery store raw meat is fine as an add-in. If you're home cooking, I would be careful again with like which kind of cuts you're buying. But price-wise, you're probably not saving that much money on grocery store raw meat. If you want a budget-friendly option, there are lots of different price points of raw. And having food that's balanced is definitely better long-term. But if you're like going to T&T to get duck gizzards, that's awesome. They have great organ meats. You can get your duck feet there. Those are awesome for like your chews and toppers. Or if you have a picky dog, you can mix those in. So,
But not the main.
So yes and no.
Yeah. Well, and balance to us means you're feeding a lot of muscle meat, which is often not cheap. And so people don't often move towards that in the grocery store. I kind of think that the quality of grocery store is part of this. If you go to Pasture Plate on commercial, you're going to get a different cut, a different quality. The animal's likely to be happy, maybe even grass finished. And so those sort of things, once you're up into that category, you're looking at a really high quality raw diet. So if you're gonna jump to a low quality store and buy a low quality ground meat, that's definitely where vets see raw being done wrong and fears them off of promoting raw, is because a lot of people do go and say, I tried ground beef for a week and my dog was really sick or got pancreatitis. So yes, you could utilize your local grocery store, but you need to think about quality and sourcing, and then over time, what is your dog actually eating, and is it the right amount of muscle meat to organ to bone with some veg in there.
Any thoughts on science coming out that raw is spreading disease to humans specifically, talking about bad bugs?
Bad bugs. I can confidently say that the dog is still set up for bad bugs, and has a lot in its immunity and the way that it's set up biologically to keep its environment safe. The way that mouths work and how fast things move through the mouth, and the fact that they don't do any digesting in the mouth, is a really good science-based thing for me that says everything moves into the gut really fast. There's myth and some research into dogs' mouths actually being quite clean, and a really healthy dog has an incredibly acidic gut. These are things that, if the E. coli was present, I feel like the dog is prepared to destroy it.
If I'm feeding my dog raw food and the raw food is less than clean, am I going to get sick from it? And my answer to that, at least for here in North America, is that the standards for raw food that is commercially produced are incredibly high, and the amount of bacterial count that they can have in raw foods is actually lower than what you can have in a low-grade grocery product. So if you're getting a raw food that is AFCO certified, which would be like in our store, Red Dog or Iron Will, or actually all of them would be AFCO certified, but anyone with a HACCP certification as well is going to be going through a really rigorous program that checks every machine, every batch for that bacterial content. And then it really comes down to how you handle your raw food. So if you are leaving the food out on the counter to thaw, that's kind of a no-no. I personally don't eat meat, so that is the only meat in my house. But when I did eat meat, I would say that I was probably less careful with how I processed, handled, and washed the things that were carrying my meat than I do with the things that are carrying my dog's meat, if that makes sense.
And in North America, E. coli is most often found in dry foods.
Yeah. That's the other thing, that when we're sourcing our food, I'm always checking the recall lists, and I am happy to say that none of the raw foods that we carry and none of the dry foods that we carry have ever had a widespread recall. Knock on wood. Just kidding. I believe in their certifications and their processes.
Do raw diets provide all the nutrition a dog needs?
I answered this question last night.
Let's hear
it.
Da, 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 da.
A raw food diet can meet all the needs of your dog, but that requires rotation and often supplementation as well. So if you were feeding, for example, just chicken or a chicken and beef blend, or even you were rotating your proteins, but maybe those proteins didn't have all the organ and bone present, you will be missing some trace minerals and vitamins. If you're ever nervous about it, they do make basically Flintstone vitamins for dogs. Our favorite is the Canine Complete from Holistic Pet Organics. But you can achieve that through supplementing with your bones and organs. We love a knuckle bone for meeting that calcium to phosphorus ratio. We love raw meaty bones for getting that stimulation, but also getting a lot of other exciting nutrients from it. Tripe or things with fur and feathers are a great way to get manganese. So you do have to kind of get a little bit more creative if you want to hit all those marks, or you can just go with a vitamin. But rotation is really important if you want to get a raw food diet balanced to a T.
I really liked this nutritionist once told me that if you're ever wondering the ratio of animal your dog should be consuming, it's the ratio of which it exists in nature. And I think that's a good visual for me when I think about how much muscle meat I want a dog consuming and compare it to how much skin and eyes and ears and kidney. And so we have those things for you. We have skin. And we have things that
Duck
you
heads.
can rotate through, cuticles,
We do have
horns.
And I will say a really great thing to note with that too is what kind of animal you're feeding. And so a really great example of this is cats, which benefit greatly from raw food diets. But never have I ever seen, aside from maybe a lion or a tiger, taking down a femur bone. So if you have a domestic short-haired cat, rabbit is a great option. Think that they would be eating rodents and birds, but they're not going to be taking down a pig or a deer or a cow.
Little
and so
fish.
Getting a little bit of that the trace nutrients that are going to come from red meats is really important, but you don't have to worry as much about having huge ruminant animals in a cat's rotation because that isn't biologically appropriate based on their background. I know your Pomeranian isn't a wolf, but descendant-wise, they are more likely to have eaten deer than I guess maybe a lynx, maybe.
Lynx fine, yeah.
Even with a raw food that is technically balanced, that has met all the AAFCO standards for what your dog needs to have at all life stages, etc., etc., synthetic vitamins are not going to be processed by the body in the same way that the natural source of those would be. And that's what Tanya was saying about how the animal exists in nature is how we want to eat it. So if we know that the best source of manganese is tripe or fur and feathers, getting a synthetic manganese will meet some amount of that.
But will
marker.
it absorb?
But will it absorb? Totally. This was really fun. Thanks for asking us questions.
Come talk to us in the store. Lots of our staff are learning, but lots are trained. And if they can't answer your question, they'll certainly find one of us that can.
And come do healthcare.
Yes, come see us.
We can talk about all of this with your dog in mind, and if it's really cute, maybe in arm.
And if you're not sure you're ready for a non-processed diet, I encourage you to rethink it this year and make it your year, because 99% of the time people kick themselves and say, why didn't I do it sooner? So I challenge you.
Nice.
Challenged.
You have been challenged.
JVN.
Exactly. Channeling
Gorge, yes,
Channel
please.
some